Bobby, for those that are watching this, how do they participate and make money in the Web3 ecosystem? I have to assume there's different ways of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it depends on what you mean by that, right? So if you mean as an investor, obviously there's many different opportunities to invest. Now, the crypto markets have generally been down. I mean, all the markets have really been down. So, you know, I don't give financial advice, you know, all the things, a disclaimer. But yeah, you could invest in certain coins. You could invest in certain DeFi protocols. You can invest in certain NFTs. There's many different sort of investable products within the Web3 ecosystem. What I would say as a caveat is just really do your research. For me, like, I believe in the technology long term. In terms of day-to-day fluctuations, it's very volatile, very risky. That's why regulation is probably the biggest issue in the space. Not everybody wants to hear that. There's a lot of people who don't want regulations at all. But unfortunately, when something like the Luna Terra collapse happens, as it did a couple weeks ago, you know, the regulators, the governments, you can't have $50 billion evaporate from the ecosystem in a day, right? With no checks and balances. So it's kind of a buyer beware thing, but the space is changing every single day. I do believe in the technology long term, but in terms of making money, I would just caution people from being too short term because it's a very volatile space.
Yeah, you mentioned ETFs, so there are ETFs out there that invest?
There's an ETF, that was Canadian, actually, the first one.
Okay, and they do invest in that. You know, you talked about approaching this responsibly.
Yeah.
What's your advice? Because a lot of people have blown themselves up, and it's hard to try to tell someone, you know, don't put money into this space if you're not okay to lose most of it. And yet we see that.
Yeah, and that's investing 101, but at the same time, you know, we have to be empathetic when people lose the amounts of money that some people have, right? So look, like the thing about crypto, if you're going to invest in it, trade, even to be honest, like all Web3 sort of products, the returns can be tremendously high, but you could lose it all in a day, right? So you have to be very careful. And this is what we learned with because, you know, the Luna Terra ecosystem, I mean, it's like a top 10 market cap. You're talking about tens of billions of dollars, right? And it just collapsed pretty much in a day.
Yeah.
Right? So people were making a lot of money, but at the other, like, it's people, I think, who are not used to the Web3 crypto ecosystem are shocked how fast it moves, and there's no business hours, right? Like, banks take the weekends off, crypto doesn't.
ETFs they only trade on certain hours in the stock exchange as well.
Right, so that's a big difference, right? So you're talking, if you really think about that, you have twice as many hours for things to move and shift all around the world. Also, it's unfettered and largely unregulated. It's not unregulated. That's a bit of a myth because there's different regulations in different countries. But the speed of money and the volume of money is unprecedented, right? And it never closes. So you have to be very careful, especially if you're doing the day trade thing, because you've never seen this amount of money move so quickly in the history of money, and it's going to 10x, 100x in the future.
Do you think investors then, Bobby, have to take a long-term view, or is it just getting better at the short-term trading?
I mean, look, I think that people are going to adopt whatever investing strategy makes sense for whatever they're doing. I would just say be cautious and don't just jump into something that you don't understand. And I would spend the time, like anything else, do due diligence, track what's happening, but just know that it's an incredibly volatile asset. Now, that could be really good too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could 10x your money in a week. Like, that's uncommon, but it can happen. So you just have to understand that it's a very volatile part of your portfolio. And for me, my personal philosophy would be have it part of your portfolio, but not all of your portfolio. A diversified portfolio is generally the safest, but some people don't want the risk.
Right.
It depends what you're doing.
We have about 30 seconds, and I just want to make the point, like, you see this extreme, right? There's like euphoria, and then there's this fear. Do you think that what we're seeing right now is undermining the legitimacy of crypto? Because now you're hearing a lot of people saying, told you it was a whole, it was a scam.
Yeah, it's not a scam, right? I mean, I think if you look what happened with the Luna Terra ecosystem, you're talking about a very experimental crypto, this thing called an algorithmic stablecoin, which had never worked and never been tested really, never been proven. So to sort of like lump that into all the other cryptos is not really practical.
Okay, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Bobby, we've touched a little bit on regulation, and I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about this. How do you see it unfolding, and do you think that we're doing enough right now to manage the crypto space?
So it depends how you define we, because there's,
Regulators,
200 countries in the world
Right.
approximately. So there's, you have 200 sets of regulations. They are coming fast and furious. Some countries are further along than others. Some are more stringent than others. China decided that they would ban all crypto activity and then launched their own digital currency, effectively creating a monopoly in their own country. And they had the highest percentage of Bitcoin miners in the world, right? So what does it mean? It means that regulations are definitely coming, but how cohesive are they going to be? What are the countries that are going to sort of brand themselves along freedom? Like if you look at Europe, right? They're launching the digital euro and they're announcing some regulations that seem quite stringent to me. Like, well, specifically like if the market cap is 5 million or above, which is nothing for crypto, then all of a sudden it gets really, 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 really rigid. And so it just seems like to me that they're almost pulling a China. They're sort of legislating crypto to the point where it can't move because they're also trying to create a monopoly for digital currencies. So you see, pretty much all central banks are doing these things called CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, where essentially they're launching their own crypto. And then now they're working with the governments. And so you're going to see this competition happening between the banks and sort of the private crypto sector. But it's going to vary country to country, I think, based on their goals.
Do you think that regulators have a knowledge gap, though, that could hinder the space?
Yes and no. I don't think, obviously, all regulators are created equal. I have friends who are regulators in different countries. I've spoken to them. Some are quite knowledgeable, some are not. Yeah, look, some regulators are brilliant and some are ignorant. Just like anything else, it's a fast-moving space. It's complicated. It's technology-based, and it changes every minute, right? Yeah. So it's hard to impose rules on a space that could be completely different tomorrow. Like that Luna Terra collapse that I keep referencing, it completely changed the space 2 weeks ago, right? And that sounds maybe ridiculous. Yeah, right. No, because it was a top 10 market cap for a very new space, it's billions of dollars, and it just changed the way the entire infrastructure works and lives and breathes and moves. So when it comes to regulations, it's just how do you set rules on a moving target? I think that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, because I mean, we have, like you said, 9,000 cryptos. You wonder how regulation's going to.
And it's probably more than that.
Probably.
Well, but that's just what people know about, right? Because you can hide them too, right?
Right. If you had a sort of a magic wand, what do you think regulators need to focus on today?
So
one thing that would help.
In Dubai, they really focused on identity, and I think that's going to be a big one. I think it's going to be quite.
So you're not anonymous using it?
Yeah, that's right. I think it's going to be illegal to be anonymous and transact business in Web3. And people don't want to hear that, but because if you know who somebody is, then you can do your KYC, you can do your AML, right? You can look at a track record. A lot of the rug pulls, a lot of the big issues that that get the headlines, and rightly so, because a lot of people have lost a lot of money in the Web3 space, are from people whose identities were obscured. So I think it's very obvious to me that anyone transacting business in the space, you're going to have to prove who you are.
Okay. We have about 45 seconds left until the end of the show. What's one thing in the crypto space that you're watching for evolving this year?
Well, the ETH merge, I want to see if it finally happens because it keeps getting delayed.
When you say ETH merge, what do you mean? Merging
Okay,
with?
so it's called it's essentially an upgrade to Ethereum.
Oh, got it. Okay.
They call it the merge. I do want to see if it finally happens and what that impact is. I really like ETH, but at the same time, like there's just so many blockchains that are faster and the technology moves so quickly. I guess I want to see like who's going to be the leader, because if the ETH merge fails, I think they're going to get superseded, and there's quite a few people who are right there.
Chomping at the bits,
100%.
Right? All right. Bobby, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. That does it for this show. If you have some comments or questions about what we discussed or cryptocurrencies in general, I'd love to hear from you. So drop me an email. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay well, stay wise, and stay wealthy.